Hi, welcome back to Postscripts from WITF, where we're watching Season 1 of All Creatures Great and Small.
I'm Beth Cappello, watching along with you for the first time with fresh eyes and ears.
And I'm Christina Zeiders, bringing you my take as a rewatcher of All Creatures Great and Small.
Woohoo! We just finished watching episode 2. And Christina, are you ready for a summary?
I am.
Okay, I'm super excited to talk about it.
Crazy episode.
I know. It was all over the place, and I felt like I was watching Game of Thrones. It literally bounces from one person to the next, to the next, to the next. You have no idea where you are in the timeline, and it is just insane to keep up with. But you have to rewatch it.
I think we should also just preface this with there's not as much death in All Creatures Great and Small.
That's true. Not as much death so far. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But anyway, yeah. So it was very all over the place. However, we start off with meeting Tristan. Oh, there's another Farnon. That was pretty cool.
I love
to see
Tristan.
That.
He's such a flirt.
He is.
He's cheeky. He is lovable though. He just wants a good time. He's a little party animal.
Yeah, definitely. So I noticed he has that he's brother to Siegfried. He seems reckless, a little aloof. He has that that younger sibling get away with everything attitude.
100%. He's the baby.
He's the baby. And everybody takes care of him. I know. The townspeople take care of him. Mrs. Hall loves him, takes care of him. And
literally everyone just babies him.
Oh, yeah.
He's the baby.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I can relate as the baby of the family. But, yeah, I can relate.
I'm the older sibling, so
this is perfect.
Siegfried.
So that's why you love Siegfried.
I get it. I feel his pain.
I know. I love it. Earlier, when we were watching, you said, I am Siegfried.
Yes.
It was awesome.
Siegfried. It was kind of humiliating because it was at his quote unquote worst moment. And I'm just nope. I'm Siegfried.
Yeah. But it wasn't his worst moment.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
I love Siegfried. But anyway, so you get that Tristan versus James right away. Yes. The whole Tristan's you won't last long. That whole type of attitude that he has towards James. You're not going to happen. It's not going to work out. You're a wayfly? Is that what he said?
Mayfly. They rarely last a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuck out to me. I'm just that's rude. Rude, Tristan, rude. But
I know.
Yeah, he's trying to make James really uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I can totally relate because I worked in a position where there was already a dynamic between my supervisor and their employee, and they did not I don't think they wanted a new staff member around. Okay. And I was the new staff member that was hired, and so it was kind of
they didn't want your help.
They didn't want my help. They didn't want anything to do with me. They let me a little bit when you're new, you struggle a bit to try and get into the groove and
fit in, find your little category.
Yeah, they already had that relationship. They had relationship with people at the office, so it was kind of I feel it.
You walk into the room and everyone just gets quiet and stares at you.
Yeah. And were you talking about me? Did this happen? I don't know. So yeah, I totally relate to that, to James in that manner. Cause he's well, and then later he tells Mrs. Hall, am I going to last? Siegfried's clearly going to keep his brother around. Does he need 2 people? But Mrs. Hall tells him it's okay. Don't worry. You'll be fine.
Right.
So that's good. So yeah, that was fun to see them, and you can tell throughout the whole episode. I feel like we're just going to bounce around here, but
yeah, well, the episode bounced around.
Yeah, it did. But throughout the whole episode, between Tristan and James, as you can tell, you have the cow incident with James. You have Tristan passing his exams or not passing his exams.
He passed the last one.
Yeah, he passed the last exam. So, but they're both withholding information from Siegfried, while also trying to get Siegfried's approval the entire episode.
They're both the babies.
I know, they're both the babies. I just want Siegfried's approval. I need to have it, and I mean, for good reason. Tristan wants his approval. It's his older brother. He's got his, and then James is well, I want his approval. I need to keep my job. There's a lot.
Well, and there's an additional level with Tristan, where Tristan is also kind of the caregiver. I mean, I'm sorry, Siegfried is the caregiver to Tristan. So there's another level of approval there.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, definitely. So let's bounce. And so Tristan and James go together to see the cow, the Hanshaw's cow, and James is he knows what's wrong with the cow. Clearly, the cow's not standing, and he says it's milk fever.
Yes,
and the Hanshaws are like, "Are you sure?
First diagnosis, yeah.
Okay, all right. So give the cow the calcium, and come back the next day. And I mean, they visited the cow 4 times.
4 times total. Yeah,
it's a lot for one animal.
The course of the entire episode.
Yeah, the whole episode, like a day and a half, 2 days, and but he diagnoses him with cow milk fever. Yep. Sorry, trying to catch where I'm at, and then we continue going, no, it's not milk fever because the cow's still down. They have to go back again.
Right.
But James doesn't tell Siegfried this because he withholds the information.
Right. He's like, it's all sorted. Fine. And he's trying to just handle it without Siegfried ever knowing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then when they go back, they try to lift the cow up and say, Kush.
Well, they watch as James tries to lift the cow up by himself.
That's true. And then James yells at the cow. And Tristan totally goaded him. He totally goaded him. He's like, hey, I'm going to yell at the cow then if you're not going to.
Right.
And then James, well, I got it. I'll yell at the cow.
He's like, no. I'll do it. Yeah, it's Kush.
Yep. Which is just a term of endearment.
Right. It's nothing mean. It's how you call it. It's literally how you call a cow.
Yep. Kush. So that was good to learn. That was pretty cool. Then James says, oh, the cow's pelvis is broken. You have to send it off to the butchers.
Right. That's the 3rd visit.
Yeah. And it's just, oh my gosh.
It's very sad. Everyone's pushing and they're screaming Kush. And he's like, please be quiet. Please be quiet. Shut up, please.
Yes.
And that's when he says, the pelvis is broken.
Yep. Pelvis is broken. Yep. Sorry, we're done. So you have to send the cow to the butchers. Final thing. Tristan, if you want to figure it out, you can figure it out on your own.
He's like, nope, not burning my hands on this one.
Yeah, exactly. So then we go and they both visit, the Alderson's calf.
Yes.
To check up on the leg.
Quote, to check up on the leg.
In
wink,
quotation.
Wink,
wink. Wink, wink. Because James just wants to see Helen.
Yeah.
Of course.
The scenery is beautiful.
Oh, the scenery is beautiful. That was great.
Scenery.
Yeah. Great view, huh?
But it's cute, too. We get to see more of Helen's personality here, where she kind of says, there's a great river up here for swimming.
Yeah.
Because she at the very beginning of the episode, Helen finds James naked in a river.
Yes, that's true.
So,
with Jess barking at him.
Yeah.
Oh, Jess.
Jess is like, you should be ashamed of yourself.
How dare you embarrass yourself this way? Yeah, but the flirting is definitely there between James and Helen.
It's subtle. It's respectful.
It is. It's respectful, bantering back and forth.
And the calf is fine.
Yeah, and the calf, of course it's fine.
But he has to take a closer look.
Oh, just a closer look. And then they leave there and go and visit Mrs. Pumphrey and Tricki-Woo. I love first
Tricki-Woo.
of all, Tricki-Woo. The name is great.
Yes.
And since you don't watch Game of Thrones, Mrs. Pumphrey is in Game of Thrones, and she is killer. She is a phenomenal actress.
I had no idea, but I love her as Mrs. Pumphrey.
I love her all over. I love her. Diana Rigg is her name.
Her actual name.
Her actual name, yeah. But she is amazing in Game of Thrones. So anyway, so we're with Tricki-Woo, and their personalities are great. And it's interesting to see how Tristan, who has everybody else under his spell,
right?
Everyone loves him. That Mrs. Pumphrey's like, you're not good enough for me.
Tricki-Woo doesn't like you because you stood on his tail once.
Exactly. And Tricki-Woo like growls at him and says, give me your paw. Nope.
Not having it.
But Uncle Harriet, I'll give you my paw all day. And he loves him.
Well, Mrs. Pumphrey likes Uncle Harriet as well.
Yes. He's a looker.
Handsome devil.
Yes, there you go. So it was pretty cool to see how Tristan did not have Mrs. Pumphrey under the spell and that Tricki-Woo didn't like him.
Well,
and
that's because Tricki-Woo didn't like him.
Exactly.
Like, you trust your dog.
Oh, yeah. And then he calls Tricki fat, essentially.
And he has to apologize to the dog.
Mrs.
And he gets
Pumphrey's like,
very,
what is wrong
flustered.
with you? Yes.
I'm sorry. Oh,
yep. And then she walks away. Yeah, there goes my invite to the party tonight. I'm not going to get one. And then he's like fumbling a bit, which is not what he's used to.
No.
He's slick. He's sly.
Tricki-Woo has him off his game.
He does. Like, he is definitely. And James is just loving every second of it.
This is the only glimpse where James gets to be treated like the king of the room.
Yeah, exactly. So jumping again. So Siegfried buys a car for Tristan.
Right, because he's under the impression that Tristan has passed all of his exams, not just the last one.
Not just the last one, exactly. So, but the relationship you really see between Siegfried and Tristan when they're in the car.
Right.
You know, Siegfried says, I was able to have, like, father gave me a car, and I love that moment, and I'm upset that you weren't able to see it. So Siegfried talks about his feelings for about 30 seconds.
30 seconds tops. Yeah.
And then quickly goes,
well, we got a party.
We gotta get ready for the party. We're done. Gotta go. So it's so funny that he's just like, nope, I gotta get ready and we're out and I'm not talking about my feelings anymore. And then zoop, 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 zips back up, goes back into his little I don't talk about my feelings hole.
Right. And there's several moments in the show where he does that. He does that with Mrs. Hall when he asks her how he looks. He wants her approval. There's something there. Yeah. There's got to be something there. But anyways, and as soon as she like basically flirts back, he shuts down and says, no, there should be a line between employer and employee. And he does it at the party too, where he's dancing with all these women, but never the same woman twice.
Yes.
And that's his mode.
Yep.
Yeah.
No feelings allowed. But it was cool to see Siegfried and Tristan's relationship and how they go. And then even like Tristan didn't get invited to the party and James did. And then Siegfried's like, it's okay. We'll do something fun later.
Right.
Like, don't worry about it. The party's not going to be fun.
He basically says like, we'll philosophize. Philosophize? That's not the word I'm looking. I can't say the word, but anyways, they're going to solve all the problems of the world.
Exactly.
Later, after the party.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is how I spent my entire teenage years.
Exactly. So, but then at the party, we see, James and Helen flirting and James goes to ask her out.
Yeah, it's bold.
It is very bold.
It's very bold.
Can I see you? And what's so funny
He's such a nerd.
I know. What's so funny is I always did this. Like, if a guy ever said, will you go out with me? Because, like, in our day and age, it would be, like, instead of saying, will you be my girlfriend? It was, will you go out with me? And that means, will you be my girlfriend? Right?
Yeah.
So when I got a, will you go out with me? For, like, the girlfriend question, I'd say, go where? Every time. I'm like, go where? Where do you want to go?
So he just beats her to the punch.
Yeah, exactly. I was so sarcastic and just rude. Like, go where?
Well, obviously I can see you, but I mean.
Exactly. So
I'm seeing you now.
So I see Helen just like kind of giggling, like, of course you see me, but do you want to see me? Like, do you want to go out like on a date or, that kind of thing? It was really funny. But then in walks Hugh, who is Neville Longbottom from Harry Potter. Like, so excited. It was the best.
I didn't notice it until you pointed it out to me. And I've seen the movies. I've watched Harry Potter. And I was just like, what? And last night I went and I looked and I was just like, oh, it is.
Yeah, I am obsessed with Harry Potter. I wore my Ravenclaw sweater, which we found out that our producer, Allie, is also Ravenclaw.
And I'm Hufflepuff.
And Christina's Hufflepuff.
Which apparently makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
I don't know. Aren't they good with plants, though? Is Hufflepuff supposed to be the one that's good with
Neville's
plants?
good with plants.
Oh, okay. So
I think the teacher...
Because I kill them all.
Yeah. The professor of plants is the Hufflepuff person.
Oh, okay.
So she's related to
Maybe
Hufflepuff.
that's just
Maybe that might be your correlation. But
I do talk to animals. I am like Mrs. Pumphrey, like the way she's having full conversations with Tricki-Woo. I'm like, I do that all the time with my dog Nolly. Like, I have full conversations with her. What's weird about this?
I don't know. A little bit maybe, but like, it's okay. I love. Do you talk?
Oh yeah, she talks
Nolly?
Back.
She talks back.
Oh yeah,
and I
translate.
To other people?
I translate for her.
Oh
yeah.
Oh. Have you ever had like the "I love you" from your dog when they bark 3 times?
No, because Nolly only shows me rage. It's snuggles or rage, and the closest I get to "I love you" is me petting her and her going at me. So
that is hilarious. Yeah. I love when my dog gives me like the rage. I love you too. And I'm like, stop it.
I love you too. Kisses while she's just growling.
It's the little dog thing.
Yeah, it's a little dog thing. It is a little dog thing.
Oh my God. Anyway, where are we?
Jeez. So we were at the party
with Hugh
James,
and Neville. Yep.
Yes.
So Hugh and Helen are dating, and I can't believe she's dating Neville, first of all, but okay.
Right. He's a very good-looking man.
Yes.
He's very, very attractive.
Yes.
Good for Helen.
Yeah. And then
now there's a love triangle.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it.
I'm excited to see what happens. Well, you know what happens, but I don't.
I do know what happens. It's been a while, though, since I've watched season 1. So I am rediscovering a little bit of it along the way, or being reminded at least.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I watch, and then I'm like, So I love this love triangle. But then at the party, they get the call. Well, Siegfried finds out from the other vet,
right, George,
about the cow, and goes, Like George is like, well, I heard that your assistant kind of screwed up
and tried a good cow to the butcher.
Yeah, he tried to send a good cow to the butcher. He screwed up.
Yep.
So Siegfried grabs James. Is like, we're going now.
He's a very passionate man, and he does not mess around. We're going now.
No, we have to.
You're
leave
going to see this cow.
Yep. So then they go and see the cow, and what is it? The cow is standing, and it's standing because they put the sheepskin on it. And like, first of all, what?
Yeah.
I never heard of that before.
I mean, I'm not a farmer, so I don't know all these old world things, but it's an old time thing that fixed the cow. And in the beginning, they kind of have this like back and forth about old ways and new ways and which one's better.
Yeah. And I could totally feel that too. There's so many ways, like whether you're at work or with family, like, no, just because you did it that way all the time, sometimes it works.
Sometimes it's better.
But then sometimes the old ways still do work.
Yeah.
So a random sheepskin worked.
Yes.
Cow stood up.
And they call her Lazarus now.
And now she's Lazarus. It's amazing. I love it. And then James is like, rats, what I've been withholding from Siegfried the whole episode. It all came out. And he had to own up to it. Siegfried is so mad. Yep. No approval. But then they walk in at home.
And he's still fuming.
He's still super mad. And then Mrs. Hall and James leave so that Tristan can own up to his mistake and to his
We should retreat to a safe distance if there is such a thing.
If there is such a thing. I love that. I definitely need to like use that in my everyday language. So, and then they leave. Tristan and Siegfried sit down and Tristan owns up.
Right.
I didn't pass my exams. Siegfried yells at him, and then says...
He's disappointed. He says, I was proud of you.
Yeah.
And like right in his face, like screams it in his face.
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's hard because Siegfried takes care of Tristan. Right. He's disappointed in him. He wants to be proud.
Yeah.
And now he's just like, man, what happened? Like...
Now I feel silly because he's been bragging about Tristan this whole time.
Yeah,
and everybody.
I know, all the townspeople and everything. Yeah. And so he had to. So Tristan owns up, and then Tristan leaves.
He tries to leave, and Siegfried's like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "I thought we were done." He's like, "We're done when I say we're done." And then there's a pause, and he's like, "Okay, we're done."
Yes.
And that's where I was like, Siegfried is me.
Yes. Because you do that.
How I fight.
This is how I fight. No, I'm not done with you. Sit down. And then sit down.
Nope. You know what? I changed my mind. Nope. I'm done.
I don't want to see you. Goodbye. I'm done. So then Tristan goes out and sits with James and Mrs. Hall, and he says, well, if I didn't own up, he'd still be yelling at you about the cow. So you owe me big time, because now he's mad at me.
Right.
So, and then they go back and forth, and then this is where the relationship kind of grows. They compromise on the mornings and nights with the feedings.
Right, and this is where it comes up that James messed up and gave Siegfried the wrong cat to castrate.
Yeah.
And Tristan finds this very humorous. And that's when they bond.
Yeah, and they bond over Siegfried's reaction.
Right.
Like, it's kind of like, yo, we can mess with Siegfried together now.
We got to stick together.
And then that's how it ends, you know? The only way we'll survive my brother is if we stick together.
Right. And then the bumper falls off the car and they run.
Yep. And then they run away laughing. And Siegfried It goes yelling, Tristan, Harriet.
Yes,
and then they're just giggling
around the corner.
Around the corner,
like brothers.
I know. I love
kind
it.
of like brothers.
I love it. So. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, I really love this episode. There's so much character development, but it bounces all over the place. Like trying to figure out how to summarize this episode was kind of insane. But there's so much character development. You kind of see the relationship between Mrs. Hall and Siegfried. You get to see Mrs. Hall's name is Audrey. So we get to see a little bit of her personal life when Dorothy comes in to like try to sell her car, which she does sell to Siegfried for Tristan.
And then we find out Mrs. Hall has a son.
Oh, right.
She writes him a letter.
We know that her Edward is her son now.
Yes.
And we see her throwing money at that lost cause because she still loves him.
Yeah. And then Dorothy says, keep an eye out on her, Siegfried.
So we get to see a lot of character development.
There is.
Yeah, and the whole relationship between Siegfried and Tristan, where it's clearly a brotherly relationship. Yeah. They have this competition, and like Siegfried tries to make Tristan jealous with the car, and so that's very brotherly. But also, Siegfried has been raising Tristan, and so he also feels this pressure to raise him right, which I think is why it hurts so much when he lies about passing his exams. So
yeah, I agree. I agree. It was a great episode. I loved it. You loved it.
I did.
I hope everybody listening loved it. Our producer Allie loved it. And so I'd like to invite everybody who's listening to share their own impressions. Email us at postscript@witf.org. That's postscript@witf.org.
Yeah, and so we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll take a closer look into episode 2.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Thanks.
Support for All Creatures Great and Small on Masterpiece is made possible locally by Pleasant View Communities and UPMC.
Welcome back to Postscript, All Creatures Great and Small. Let's take a closer look at some of our favorite moments from episode 2. Hey, Christina, what stood out to you?
So I'm going to circle back to the relationship, I guess between Siegfried and Mrs. Hall, but also their relationship as caretakers, like overall. So we know that Siegfried is the older brother to Tristan, but he's also kind of acting like a father figure as well. Mm-hmm. And then we have Mrs. Hall, who just caretakes everybody. Like, she's very motherly.
She takes in everyone.
Right. She's anyone off the street, she takes care of them. She feeds them. She clothes them. She keeps everything clean. So, like, in Mrs. Hall's case, we see her caring for Siegfried where, like, she cooks him food, which is, I guess, part of her job, technically.
A little bit, yeah.
Makes sure, like, his clothes looks good. She cleans the office, makes sure that the office is running smoothly when they're open to the public. She also, like, manages relationships, like, she kind of is a mediary between Siegfried and James and Siegfried and Tristan. So she kind of manages the relationships, the workloads. And she's also really good at gently correcting everybody's wrongs. Like, she has a way of just being like, no, I'm coming from this place of like, care and understanding, and I just want to see you succeed. It takes talent to do that because I'm very upfront and like brutal.
Straight to the point.
I admire, I go straight to the point. Like, this is what's wrong and this is what you need to do to fix it. And that can be pretty abrasive. But Mrs. Hall doesn't do that. She's very gentle. And then with, like, Tristan, he comes and immediately she's just like, oh, I wish I had more time. I would have prepared more for you. But when he comes in, he thinks he's getting tea, and she actually has, like, a nice spread out.
Yeah.
So she like, mothers Tristan, too, and, again, gently corrects him, like, when she finds the grades in his pocket, and she goes, she sighs, like, she just audibly sighs and slumps over, because she knows she has to talk to Tristan about telling the truth. So, but, yeah, she, like, fixes up his room, and, like, just feeds him, takes care of him, and he's a handful, but she loves it. Like, she clearly sees him kind of as a son figure. Yeah. And that's probably because her son, Edward, she loves him. She sends him money. She asks about him, but something about him, he's a mess.
Yeah, something. That's what, like, Dorothy was saying.
Right.
Something, like, keep an eye on her.
Let's talk about it over a brew. And she asks, Dorothy asks Siegfried, now that there's two Farnons, I have to remember their names.
I know.
Dorothy asks Siegfried to look after her, take care of her, make sure that she is, not putting too much of herself out there, because that is something that she would do. She loves Edward. She sends him money, probably money she doesn't really have to give, because, working as a housekeeper, I imagine doesn't pay super well. And then with James, we see her kind of mothering him. And I mean, she went to bat for him in episode 1, but also she eases his worries. He's very worried about Tristan coming in and taking the work. And is there going to be enough work for 2 of us? And she kind of just reminds him that there's always more work to do and that just keep doing what you're doing. So she helps James, eases James' worries and all of that. And with Siegfried, we definitely see this older brother aspect where he sends James in the rover to make Tristan very jealous. And that's very brotherly. That's the brotherly competition. Look at how awesome I'm doing because I have my life together. You should get your life together too, and maybe you'd have a rover. But we also see a little glimpse as to why Siegfried feels so intense about taking care of Tristan, because in the car scene, well, as he's talking to Mrs. Hall in one of the scenes, he says that he feels like a pressure's been lifted because he made a promise to his dying father, basically, to take care of Tristan. And that's why he ultimately ends up buying the car for Tristan, because he's thinking about, he felt like that was a moment that was pivotal in his life, his father giving him his first car, and he felt sad that Tristan didn't have that. So he's kind of stepping in as a father saying, here's your first car. I'm so proud of you, son. Yeah. Which we all know how that ends up, because Tristan is a mess. He's still a little bit of a mess. He means well, but he's a little bit of a mess.
I wish that somebody gave me a car, but I definitely did not get a car. Did you ever get a car?
I was given a car once I actually got my license. And it was my Meemaw's old beat up Ford Tempo. It already had a chunk missing out of the front bumper.
Chunk?
Right. There was a chunk missing. She had obviously hit a curb and backed up, and it took part of the bumper with it. So it was a great starter car, but it definitely was not as nice as the car that Siegfried bought for Tristan.
No.
That looked like a really nice car.
It did. And my first car was just it was a junker, beat up too. Yeah. It was 10 years old by the time I got it, and it flooded 3 days after I bought it. It was $2,000. It was mad cheap.
It flooded.
Yeah, so that's a story.
Water came into it?
Yeah. So 3 days after, my sister had a bachelorette party and I went. I was 18. So we were, and it was in the shore. So high tide and rain means flooding streets, and I was parked on a flooded street, and it just went into the car.
Okay.
And then it was it was a Hyundai Accent hatchback. So I had to pop the hatchback open and climb through the back of the car, because if I opened the door, more water would have went in.
Oh my God.
So I had to open the hatch, and then I climbed through in my pajamas because I got out there early. And then, I had to drive it around the corner.
Right. Well, I'm glad it started, so it wasn't the engine wasn't flooded.
No, that was good. And then I drove it home, and then my dad fixed it for me. He
That's nice.
We were I was trying to get all the water out, and then he
I would have been we'll just leave the doors open for a couple of days.
Exactly. That's what I would think. But he's you just bought this. I can't have it get moldy. So he actually took the seats out, lifted the carpet up, put a fan in it for 48 hours, put the carpets back down, and put the seats back in for me.
Well, that's nice.
I know.
I don't think my dad would have known how to fix it.
Yeah. And then I drove it to Wildwood.
Love my dad, but not great at fixing things.
I was very spoiled. But anyway, sorry. I just wanted to see if you actually were given a car or not.
Yeah.
Because some people are.
My first car, if it got wet, if you went through a puddle and it splashed, it would just squeal for a solid minute. And it was really embarrassing. Some belt must have gotten wet every time you would hit a puddle. Yeah.
Would it squeal so loud in the car or outside of the car?
Well, it was definitely under the hood that it was squealing, but you could You could definitely hear it. And it was humiliating. Funny. That's the same car. Like, you couldn't go more than like 25 miles per hour over Peter's Mountain.
Oh, yeah. That's what you talked about. Yeah. You told me.
So yeah, that was my first car, and it was a great car.
Yeah, same. I loved it.
I loved my little beater car, but it, I have upgraded, but they've all been at least 10 years old when I buy them.
The best car is little worn in with some love.
Like, yeah, it's still running. We're doing good. But yeah, so we see Siegfried kind of frustrated by his brother's party animal ways, and he just wants his brother to grow up and succeed. Like, it's all coming from a place of love, but he's tough love. That's Siegfried's overarching theme, is just like tough love. Like, he gives it to James, and now he's been giving it to Tristan, which is why James and Tristan kind of bond, because they're both getting the tough love from Siegfried. So yeah, and in another aspect, Siegfried and Mrs. Hall are kind of like working together to raise Tristan too. Like, there's a little bit of a mother-father dynamic there too. Mrs. Hall's obviously the mother and is gentle. Like I said, she has a motherly way for everyone, including Siegfried. And then, Siegfried's kind of the tough love, you have to be a man, grow up sort of thing. But I also wanted to touch on, I think there's a budding romance between Mrs. Hall and Siegfried, so I'm excited to see where that goes, because she seems a little uncomfortable when Dorothy's flirting with him, and he wants her approval for his outfit before the party, but as soon as she asks how he likes the female company, he kind of like shuts down and doesn't want to talk about it anymore. So I think there's a budding romance there, and I'm here for it. I'm excited to see if that's true.
Well, I'm glad you're picking that up. I'm excited to see what's to come.
I might also just really want it to happen.
That would be nice. I mean, they live together, so yeah. I took a closer look on the test that Tristan didn't pass.
Okay.
So it was
because James said that they were difficult.
Oh yeah, he said they were tough, and then
but he passed them the first time,
didn't you? It's like, yeah, duh, no.
Doy.
But actually, looking into those, they seem really tough.
Yeah,
like, it's parasitology and pathology. So like, looking into parasitology, Googling, of course.
Yeah.
It's the scientific discipline concerned with the study of the biology of parasites and parasitic diseases.
Which are no fun.
No, that
like,
doesn't
everybody's
sound fun
worst nightmare is that their pets had sworms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't
some sort of
fun
parasite.
Exactly. So it doesn't sound fun at all. The data obtained from like the research that they do, it really helps in the veterinary practice, clearly. And like, I found that the major goal is to protect animals, I guess, from worms and other things.
Well, there's some parasites that are really bad too. Like, heartworm is terrible for cats and dogs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's important to know what's going on with parasites.
Very, very important. And then pathology is the study of the animal disease. So like, it's crucial in determining like what the disease is and then what you can do to kind of help it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
so
a regular
kind of hand
doctor.
in hand. Yeah, like regular. So they both are kind of hand in hand. Definitely need to know what to do. So over the past 2 episodes, we've seen that the other horse's infection, like, he's done the infection. James has done the infection, and then it was more kind of physical with like the labor, armpit deep,
right?
And then fixing the calf's leg, and then he helped out in the pub. He helped the guy with the runt, from the piglet runt. Yeah,
it wasn't feeding. Yeah,
exactly. So it was more like physical stuff. There weren't any like parasites. But then for this episode, he has to diagnose something that you can't see.
Right.
All you see is a cow sitting down, which is not good for cows. It's not good for cows. They weigh too much. You can't have them sit for too long. Their muscles get sore and then eventually won't work. So it's really bad for a cow to be sitting down. And at this point in the episode, it's about like 2 days of the cow sitting down. So with Tristan, in those scenes, like, he clearly doesn't want anything to do with having to diagnose the cow.
And he's playing it off like he's just the baby.
Exactly. Like, no, you got this, James. We'll go off of what
I'm going to eat this snack while you work.
Exactly. And then towards the end, like, I'm not getting my hands involved. Like, this is not something I'm going to do. But clearly it's because he did not pass. So, like, he doesn't know. He can't figure out.
Right. He can't diagnose the cow.
No, he can't. And then even if he tried, it's malpractice. So, like, you can't do that. You know, he didn't pass his exams. So then he could potentially, like, not get his license. Something could probably happen to Farnon's license.
Oh, for sure. Like, this is one of the few instances where he seems actually responsible.
I know.
But he's playing it off like he's being irresponsible.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's such a surprise for him to be
doing
deep down and doing the right thing and being responsible without having to reveal. And to reveal that he's been hiding something all along, that he didn't pass his exams. So I just dove a little bit and took a little bit of a look into like the vet schools that are available in the UK.
Yeah.
Like now. Right. So there's like 11 of them.
And that just seems like so few.
It does for how big the UK is. Like,
well, we think it seems like it would be okay. It's a whole country, but maybe it's not actually that big. I've never actually dove into the square footage of square meters of the UK.
We'll have to go into that. But so I figured, and then you helped me with this, was that the vet school that Tristan went to in Edinburgh is the Royal Dick School of Veterinary Studies.
And we practice saying this so that we won't giggle.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna giggle.
Okay. You can
giggle. Kind of funny. And then which is also known as the Dick Vet. Which is just I can't not giggle at that. I'm sorry. But it's still around today. Right. They call it the University of Edinburgh. Mm-hmm. But it's still also known as the Dick Vet. Mm-hmm. And the real world Tristan went there from the books.
Right. Yes, because Tristan is based on a real person.
Yeah, exactly. And he did go there. So that was pretty interesting. I just wanted to bring up a little bit of background on vets.
Yeah. So what, now that we're getting into it and like getting to know everyone a little more, like what are you interested in seeing in episode 3 and beyond?
I'm interested to see what happens with James and Helen and how long we're going to have Hugh last. Yeah, how long is Hugh going to be in this show? That's a big question for me.
Yeah, there's a love triangle now. It's a real love triangle.
Exactly. So how long is that going to last? And I like that you touched on the Mrs. Hall and Siegfried and to see where that goes.
Yeah, I'm hopeful.
Yeah. And of course the relationship between Tristan and James and how that's going to go off, and if, like, that brother, dynamic that they're going to have.
Because they clearly have this, like, they're the younger brothers now.
Exactly.
They're
going to gang up on Siegfried. They're definitely going to gang up on Siegfried.
That's like all of my same things that I'm excited about, like the budding romance, like my hopeful budding romance, and the love triangle. And Helen's just such a sweet girl, so it's no surprise that she has so many men interested in her. But what a problem to have. I mean, she's a sweet girl. That's probably tough. So
exactly. So I feel like we're really starting to ease into the world of Darrowby. Thanks everyone for listening and joining us on this journey.
Yeah, and I can't wait to keep going with episode 3.
This podcast was produced by Amorós from WITF. Once again, I'm Beth Cappello.
And I'm Christina Zeiders. Share your afterthoughts with us at postscript@witf.org, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
We'd like to thank Pleasant View Communities and UPMC for supporting All Creatures Great and Small on WITF. Thank you.